Ever since Subaru and Toyota made the BRZ and the 86 about 12 years ago, it's been a very popular option for the younger crowd. They're affordable, good-looking, sporty, and retains the traditional FR powertrain layout. Now, inflation has hit us pretty hard over the past few years, but they're still relatively affordable, with the 2024 model year starting at around 34,000 Canadian dollars. This, however, is the latest iteration from Subaru, the 2024 BRZ TS, and this aspect comes in at about 38,000 Canadian dollars. Let's check it out. So, BRZ TS. TS stands for Tuned by STI, and in this BRZ application, that means you get a set of upgraded Hitachi dampers and a set of upgraded Brembo brakes. Alongside that, you also get a bunch of cosmetic changes, which we'll go over. Up in the front, you get a front grille that looks a little bit like a smiley face, as well as the BRZ TS badging on the left side. Headlights are LED and they're steering responsive. You also get a BRZ logo within the headlight housing. I do like the overall look of the front end of this BRZ, but I do think I prefer the Toyota version just a little bit more. Under the hood, you'll find Subaru's famous 2.4-liter Boxer 4 engine. But because Subaru has partnered with Toyota to develop this car, it also features Toyota's D4S system, which means that it gets both direct injection and port injection. Compared to the last generation, this 2.4-liter engine is 400cc larger, which means that it is now a over-square setup instead of a square setup. The result is that not only is power and torque increased, the torque also comes much earlier. 228 horsepower at 7,000 RPM and 184 pound-feet of torque at 3,700 RPM. Power is routed through a 6-speed manual transmission to the rear wheels through a Torsen limited slip differential. Although the TS model only comes in 6-speed manual transmission, if you want an automatic gearbox, you could get it in the Sport Tech trim or the limited trim in the US. In terms of the side profile, this is such a beautiful car, especially the wide hips in the rear. Also, let me remind you that these vents are real. As far as wheels and tire goes, this TS model gets dark gray, almost black colored 18-inch rims. They're paired with 215 wide Michelin Pilot Sport 4 tires in all 4 corners. Suspension-wise, the front uses McPherson strut and the rear uses double wishbone setup. As mentioned, the TS model gets the Hitachi dampers that are tuned by STI. Okay, one last thing I'd like to mention before moving on are these brakes. These are upgraded Brembo brakes, 4-piston in the front and 2-piston in the rear. They're also painted in gold, which looks absolutely stunning with this car. I really appreciate the fact that Subaru didn't just slap on a single piston floating caliper in the rear and calling it a day like most other brands. Over to the rear, I think if Subaru had put in a little bit of a more aggressive spoiler in the back here, it would look better just because it's the TS model. Nonetheless, I think the rear end looks pretty good in my opinion, but that's up to personal preference. Opening up the trunk, it is quite shallow, but the trunk is deep. You can also fold down the rear seats for extra cargo room. Something I've noticed, however, is that underneath here, you get obviously your tire repair kit, but the styrofoam that holds it in place kind of wiggles a little bit, so you might notice that when you're driving this car aggressively. Alright, let's hear how this BRZ sounds stock. The backseat of the BRZ is definitely for emergency uses only. I can fit in it, but as you can see, I can't sit straight, My head is hitting everything. I have no leg space, nothing. So let's jump in the front. Alright, much better here. The cabin here is mainly upholstered with suede materials as well as leather. Of course, there's some plastic around, which I don't mind at this price point. The seats are comfortable and supportive, which is nice. And for the TS model, you get blue stitching and blue accent on the seats. In terms of interior features, as with most of these second-gen BRZ trims, you get a digital instrument cluster, an 8-inch infotainment screen, wired Apple CarPlay, wired Android Auto, and a bunch of physical controls for your media, climate, as well as heated seats functions. As for your TS goodies, you get a few of them in the interior as well. First, you get the STI engine start-stop button in red, and then you get red accents on your instrument cluster, as well as an STI badging next to your tachometer. Compared to the Miata, not only do I get 2 extra seats in the back, I also get a glove box. Yes, it is also pretty decent in size. And then over here in the center console area, you do get a storage space, which seconds as 2 cup holders. On top of that, you get 2 USB ports, as well as an aux port, which is very 2005. Nonetheless, this closing mechanism closes both sides at the same time, which is a pretty cool feature. One thing that I've noticed, however, is that when I'm shifting, occasionally I would press the button and open the console. Bit of a poor design here in my opinion. Alright, let's cut to the driving portion because ultimately that's what this car is built for. Perhaps the most noticeable improvement Subaru has made to this generation's BRZ compared to the last generation is that they got rid of the torque dip. Torque now comes much earlier, so the engine is more potent in the mid-range. You still have to rev it out to get all the power that you want, but it's much improved over the last generation. 228 horsepower isn't a lot, but when paired with a car that weighs just under 1,300 kilos, it's enough to have quite a bit of fun. Fun and playful, but very controllable. The steering feels direct and very responsive. You also get plenty of road feel, which somehow in today's world is hard to find, so excellent job to Subaru. The chassis and suspension, well, what can I say? They've just gotten it so right. The car feels nimble, light, and so well balanced. Turn-ins are sharp, corner exits are fun, a little bit of oversteer if you want. It's just magically exciting to drive in my opinion. The dampers are not adaptive, it's a one-size-fits-all setup. But in day-to-day driving, the ride quality is excellent. It's never harsh. This is really a great example of what suspension tuning should be. Again, great job to Subaru on this suspension setup. If you're considering between a BRZ or a GR86, this is the one area that they're tuned differently. The GR86 a little bit more tail happy compared to this very well balanced BRZ. It's not saying that you can't shake the tail out just like I just did right there. It's just a little bit more balanced compared to the GR86. So that's something to note when you're comparing between the two. The gearbox feels notchy, the throws are short, and the pedal placement is perfect for a heel-toe downshift. Clutch bite point, on the other hand, is a little bit on the higher side, so something to note there. Overall, the clutch, throttle, and the gearbox setup feels a little bit less forgiving to drive smoothly compared to the Civic Si, the Type R, and the Integra Type S. You also don't get any of the manual assistance stuff like your uphill brake hold, your downshift rev match, making this car a fantastic specimen to hone your driving skills. New for all the 2024 BRZ is the Subaru EyeSight safety system, which includes features like emergency braking, lane departure warning, and adaptive cruise control. The TS model also comes with blind spot monitoring as well as rear cross traffic alert. I personally haven't found the EyeSight system to be intrusive, but I've heard others say otherwise. So that's something to note there again when you're planning to purchase one of these. It is also a pity that there isn't a lane centering assist with the EyeSight package. I think a complete system would have been nice. These Brembo brakes, let me show you. They have fantastic braking power. These are really strong, and for a car this light, your stopping distance is really short. The brake pedal also feels great, and I think overall it's a fantastic upgrade to the standard brakes that you get in the normal BRZ. Let's toss it in this corner and see how that feels. Excellent. Lastly, in terms of fuel economy, the BRZ TS is rated for 12 liters per 100 kilometers in the city and 8.8 liters per 100 kilometers on the highway. These aren't great numbers, especially considering the fact that you have to put premium in this vehicle. Overall, the 2024 BRZ TS is a well-rounded, driver-focused sports car that offers plenty of fun while maintaining somewhat everyday usability for two people. It is also offered in a relatively affordable price, which is fantastic. What do you guys think? Are you in the market for one of these? Would you pick the GR86 or would you pick the BRZ? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.